Let's get started. Now, I am terrible at multitasking, which means that if it pings to admit people, I'm going to be a little bit distracted. So do bear with me on that. There's an awful lot going on in my head and watching this to make sure that I get you fully involved. So let me introduce myself. I know that some of you who are online today actually know me already, but for the benefit of people who I'm completely new, my name is Moira Mackey, and I am an executive team and leadership coach, and I essentially help people to have better conversations with each other. And this is why I love the CV and job search process, because that CV process and that job search is essentially the first conversation you're having is with yourself. Who am I? What have I got to offer? Where do I want to be? And it means that that you are really having that dialogue with yourself, and then it's about having good quality conversations, and not only at interview but with headhunters and recruiters and your network. And it's really the psychology that comes into play. So that's why I am incredibly passionate about this part of my job, but it's not a huge part of my job anymore. Most of what I do is help teams work better together. But when it comes to CVs and it comes to job search and whatever, I work either one-to-one or with groups. And that's why, another thing to let you know, that on Monday we start a group coaching sprint, and a couple of you lovely people who are on today have actually already signed up. And I've also got someone on here who has worked with me one-to-one, and who has also worked, let me just admit a few more people who are coming in now. And then I've got someone on here who's about to start a one-to-one career coaching process with me. So there are lots of different options, but today my main focus is giving you as much value as I can so that you can go away and implement stuff like now, like at 11 o'clock. And that also you've got some overarching principles that you can take away. But there's an awful lot of really kind of dodgy advice out there, and having run assessment centres for very large global organisations, I've seen the struggle that assessors and recruiters and hiring managers have when they accept or reject people, because they actually often don't know why they're rejecting people. And so with my psychologist hat on over the years, I've worked out what is it that is going on for people. So that's me. If you've got any questions about the process, about me, or burning questions you want answered today, put them in the chat. If they're out of scope, I'll tell you they're out of scope, but please, if you have any questions, put them in the chat. And I will do my best, because this is the reason why I only really do live webinars. I really want to get a conversation going between us. So let me know if there's anything, and then we're going to start. Now, an important thing to say as well is that I will send you the slide deck after this, and I'll also send you a download, one of the exercises that's on the Jobsprint. I'll send you a download. But the recording will only be made available in my Facebook group, which is called Get Off the Hamster Wheel. And Get Off the Hamster Wheel is designed for, obviously, people who feel that they are on the hamster wheel from time to time. So that's where that will be made available. So please take notes or whatever is useful or helpful to you. Now, let me just do this very kind of multitasking element here, which is where I'm going to share my screen. And hopefully, if you can just be really super helpful here, and let me know if you can see my slide deck now, that would be really, really helpful. If you can just put in the chat a yes or a Y that you can see my screen. And it isn't in slideshow view, because if it's in slideshow view, then I can't see any of the meeting controls. It looks like someone else also wants to come in. So welcome to any latecomers. So yeah, people are saying they can see it. So yeah, sometimes when I ask questions, you can just put a Y or an N in the comments. So that's fantastic. Okay, so what we're basically going to do today, just to make sure that we're all on the same page, is to whoops. Right, so a little bit of a technical hiccup there. Right, so the first thing is you. I would like you, I'd request you now really, if you have any distractions around you, to eliminate them. You know, turn off notifications, close tabs, all that kind of stuff. But the only thing that I am going to ask you to do is, if you put your phone on silent, that's awesome. But I am going to ask you to do something with your phone a bit later on in the webinar. So if you keep your phone on silent but keep it around you, that would be helpful if you've got it. So really just, I want this session for the next sort of 45 minutes or so to be all about you and investing in you and thinking about you and thinking about your particular job search. And so, as I promised, the output today is going to be that we're going to start talking about the emotional dimension of job search and some of the traps that we all fall into. When I'm talking about this, I don't want to suggest that I have it all sussed out, because I'm a human being too and it affects me. I have run my own business since 2008, and so I am constantly selling what I do and pitching what I do and presenting bios to people, and so HR and L&D, they are people that I regularly communicate with. So I fall into these traps too, and I need to keep an eye on it. So then I want to talk about the two biggest job hunting mistakes that people make, and it keeps them from getting interviews, it keeps them from getting further in the process. Your CV stays on the no pile because of these two fundamental reasons, and I'd be very interested to know, when I tell you what they are, whether you've ever thought about it like this or even considered it. We're going to look at what recruiters and hiring managers are really looking for, and at this point I think it's a really good point for me to say that the job search sprint that I am running next week, starting on Monday, I am working with a really trusted friend and colleague called Paul Jenkins, and Paul is with me today online. And can you just stop? Believe it or not, my phone is ringing and my office phone is ringing, and the landline is ringing, and I had forgotten to switch it to silent, so apologies for that. So Paul Jenkins is actually here with me today, and he has, I think, a couple of decades experience of working as a recruiter and in executive search. So what I'd like to do is, Paul's just going to introduce himself in the chat, and then if you can also introduce yourselves, if you're happy to introduce yourself just very briefly, then that is awesome too. So I noticed Paul's put in the chat, you know, he's worked in recruitment for 30 years, and I know especially he's got a lot of experience with IT contractors and also executive search earlier in his career. So if anybody wants to and is happy to introduce themselves into the chat, that would be lovely. If you want to stay quiet and anonymous, that's also fine. And so finally, you know, what we're going to do is we're going to have key do's and don'ts for your CV and your LinkedIn profile. And then we're going to look at what to include in your LinkedIn headline, how to increase your chance of coming up in search. There is a lot of technical stuff that people may already know about LinkedIn. And so that's one of the things that you may know. If you have any extra information about LinkedIn that you want to share with the group, then please do. But we go into quite a lot of detail on the sprints, on the group coaching and on individual coaching, about how to understand how the algorithm works on LinkedIn. And so lovely. Great, thank you so much. Thank you, Roger. And thank you, Abid, for introducing yourself. That's lovely. And please do start talking to each other as well, if you can multitask. But first of all, let's start, right? Let's start. Let's go to the fact that we're going to talk about the emotional piece. Now, this is an adaptation of Elizabeth Kubler-Ross's grief curve. Anybody familiar with the grief curve? Put a Y in the chat if you're familiar with it. If you're not, put an N. Absolutely, it's really helping me to understand. Great. Okay, so we've got some people recognizing the grief curve, and some people it's new. Okay, so the real concept is that one of the important things is that William Bridges, who's a psychologist, said that it is not the change that does us in, but the transition. And this is what this curve is showing you. The transition is psychological, is internal. The change is one job to another. But for all of us as human beings, we've got this important process of transition, of letting go. And so this curve is what it's explaining, you know, and you won't necessarily hit all of these points all of the time, and it won't be linear. But what we do know is that no one jumps from one to the other. What happens is some people think they do, and then they slide all the way down, because you have people going, I'm fine, I'm awesome, I'm fine. And so this is one of the things that's quite important to recognize. So what I'd like you to do is, you don't have to tell me where you think you are in transition, is let me know in the chat if you recognize that you are on there somewhere. So give me a Y in the comments if you recognize where you are. If you want to share where you think you are, that's also awesome as well, because that just helps me know what to talk to in a way. So if you can just let me know if you recognize yourself on the grief curve. Okay, Mustafa, you're saying you're familiar with grief? Yes. Yeah, okay. Cara, you're saying you're moving forward. Okay, Lynn, lovely. Somewhere between fear and threat. Okay, great. Okay, so I know I've got some of you online who are directly impacted by IR35. This is one of the prompts for me to start another group coaching sprint. And I've been watching a lot of chat over the last few days on LinkedIn, and I see a lot of people stuck in the fear, threat, denial piece, and we're going to talk about that, because actually the only way that you're going to be really attractive to employers and recruiters is that you've got to get out onto the other side of that hill. So the I can see myself in the future, that's a really important place to reach, because when you can see yourself in the future, then you're faced towards the people that you're wanting to get their attention. And the other thing is, that's how CV coaching helps, because when you work with me, I'm going to be focusing on the future rather than the past. So really important to see yourself in the future. Lucy, you can see yourself in the future. That's brilliant. Okay. But anxious. Okay, good. So recognizing that you can see yourself in the future, but you're probably holding some of those other emotions that you've brought with you, because you don't know what's on the other side of that hill. Is that another hill, or is that another dip? So really important for you to start to recognize your emotions around this, because this is another thing I love about CVs, is I can tell people's emotional state by just looking at their CV. And if you're a personal CV coaching client with me, you will have me saying, oh, I think that you were feeling like this when you wrote your CV. And people go, what? Because it shows. It really, really shows. And that's why I love doing what I'm doing, because I can help you get into the right headspace that then you're speaking unconsciously to recruiters and headhunters and hiring managers the right kind of emotion. And so what I'd like to do now is just talk a little bit about what happens when we're on this grief curve. And this little picture here, this is a psychological model called the drama triangle. And I always imagine it as a roundabout, as a merry-go-round. And what happens is we, when we're under pressure, we tend to get on the merry-go-round of drama. And we will take a position on that merry-go-round, and we can switch horses mid-sentence, mid-moment, but we often recruit other people to join us on this merry-go-round. So what happens when we're in job search, or especially if we've been let go and it's not our choice, we will leap on one of those horses. So what I'd really like is for people to put in the chat which horse do you jump on, or which horse have you jumped on, or recognizing if you do. Now obviously the victim horse is like, that's all out of my control, I can't do anything, I feel really helpless, the horse is galloping away, I'm not sure if I'm going to fall off, all of that kind of stuff. And then what can happen is that after a little bit of feeling helpless and out of control, we don't like that. So we leap onto the persecutor's horse and we go, it's somebody else's fault. It's terrible. The market's terrible. The government is terrible. The tax people are awful. We start blaming someone. And then we look for a rescuer. And when I chatted this through to Paul in our preparation for this webinar, Paul talked about, can you just close the door, Paul? Sorry. I hope you can all hear me again. It just said my internet is unstable. Paul talked about the role for recruiters. So do you sometimes see recruiters or rescuer get disappointed, even angry when they fail to save you? Yep, victim, rescuer, all of them at one time. Okay. Not sure what the future looks like with IR35 and Corona, uncertain for interims. Roger, yes, sorry, I didn't pick up that comment earlier. Yes, there is so much uncertainty at the moment, and this is affecting absolutely everybody, absolutely everybody. And so I am currently organising live events, and I have no idea whether they'll be cancelled. And as an independent business owner, some insurances don't even cover cancellation at this stage. If I've got events running in June, July, August, they can cancel and there are no cancellation penalties. So yeah, we know that it's really difficult out there. So this is one of the things that can happen when we are in uncertainty. Uncertainty forces us on to this merry-go-round. And as Paul says that often recruiters are put in the position of being a rescuer, and the CVs get floated over to the recruiter as if the recruiter is now going to do everything for you, which is absolutely not my advice, all right? I have lots of advice on how to manage recruiters, and Paul may want to shut his ears when I cover this, but I've got lots of advice about how to handle recruiters. But the key point to this is that none of these are helpful positions. You need to get yourself off the merry-go-round of drama and look at things really coolly and calmly and collectedly, and that will get you further forward, because none of these positions are really helpful. And your family, if you're taking victim or persecutor roles, your family or friends may try to rescue you. And again, sometimes it works, but often it doesn't. Okay. Yeah. Okay. All right. So we've yep, let it all out about recruiters. It'd be nice if they actually replied to you. Yeah, I'm with you, Nicholas. Sometimes even the basic curse. Yes, yes, agreed with all of that. So when we talk in a minute about how to handle what recruiters are looking for, the most important thing is that you are in control of you. One of the things I always say is don't give your CV to recruiters until you've interviewed them. And if you're clear on their SLAs and if you're clear on what their commitments are, then you share the CV. And so then you can hold them accountable and say, well, when we had that chat, you said you'd get back to me in 24 hours and I haven't heard from you. But there are lots of things you can do, and we'll talk about that a bit later on. But if you've got any questions, do put them in the chat. are we okay to move on? Let's move on, shall we? And look at this. In my experience, most CVs look a bit like this. Maybe with more spaghetti off the plate and on the wall. In the chat, maybe you could let me know how long your CV is in terms of pages. And also, when was the last time you started with a blank page and wrote your CV? If you can just let me know in the chat, that would be awesome. Okay. So, recruiting the recruiter, good, Roger, yes. I've got all sorts of stuff. And that's another reason we're going to talk about this, but it's really important that your LinkedIn CV, your LinkedIn profile is not the same as your CV, because otherwise you've given away the crown jewels. So I want you to think about job search a bit like dating. You know, I'll let you finish that analogy, but do not give away the crown jewels before you've even gone out on a date. So when did you last start with a blank sheet? 9 years ago. Okay, 4 pages, last started ages ago. Okay, so what happens with a CV is, this is what, you start with a CV when you're young, and every time you get a new job, most people just throw another bit of spaghetti at the wall, and it shows. So what I advise people is always going back to a blank sheet. But this is what happens. It's a bit of a mess. And so what I want you to answer me in the chat now is, have you ever hired people yourself? And if you have hired people, what have you looked for? Can you just give me a few answers in the chat? Have you ever hired people? Have you ever recruited people? And if so, what were you looking for? Don't go into huge detail, but just top level, what were you looking for? If I can just start to see in the chat. Yes. Okay. 3 pages in 2 years. Okay. Okay. Cara, lovely. I've hired people. I look for a clear, concise CV. Yes, enthusiasm and willing to learn. Yes, I've hired. HR do the functional bit, I do the team fit bit. Good, really good, excellent. Okay, anybody else? Now, so for those people, this is what tends to happen. Actually, it's about the difference between being a pedestrian and a car driver. The minute drivers get out the car, they act as if they've never been in a car before, and they step in front of cars. It's a bit like this with thinking about job search. You need to think about what recruiters are looking for. You need to think about what the job, what's really being asked of you. And that's one of the key things. So what I want you to bear in mind at the moment is, how much of an alphabet-y spaghetti do you think your CV is? And how much of it really represents who you are right now? Okay, so as you start to look at the chat, start to look at the comments that you yourselves are making about what you've looked for. And I want you to think about whether you are currently displaying those things, both in your CV, in your LinkedIn profile, and also in any of your networking or anything like that. So please start thinking. You yourselves are giving me some answers about what people look for. It's not just coming from me. Start to evaluate what's happening. So just before we move on, I do want to mention that, as I have already, that on Monday the sprint starts. It is at an offer price, actually, at £295. It's way less than I've usually offered, but I felt a rush of compassion and desire to help people who are suddenly finding themselves in a situation that they've never found themselves in before, with the changes with IR35, with the ongoing uncertainty. And so this is basically a hand, holding your hand through the whole process, taking you from blank new CV page to a CV that you're proud of, to a LinkedIn profile that does you justice, with a whole set of strategies for how to approach recruiters. Now, it has to be necessarily high touch. You're going to get an hour of coaching from me and from Paul, so we can help you through it. But if you feel you need more help, and especially if you want to go into a different direction, this coaching will meet some of your needs, but really I would recommend one-to-one coaching. So that's the sales piece over. There is no pressure to do anything. We're just going to dive in now and look at what to do. And the first thing I really want to mention is that there are two really important truths to looking for a job, and you need to move onto the hill with that and accept these. And that is that no one wants to hire you or anyone ever. And the second thing is, it's not about you. So I get a lot of people saying to me, I don't like selling myself. And I say, good, because it's not about you. It's not about you at all. So is anybody surprised by these statements? Give me a Y in the comments if you are surprised. If you're not surprised, give me an N or any other comments, but yeah, let me know. Okay, yep. Cara, no. Nicola, yes. Okay. I'm loving the chat, by the way. I'm going to have to go back and look at the chat, and if there are any questions that I feel are in scope that I don't answer during this, I will get back to you. I do really want you to get something out of this. Okay, so let's take the no one wants to hire you. They don't want to hire you. It's a pain in the ass hiring people. It's very expensive. They often make a lot of mistakes. They hire people that they realize they hired because they were good at interview and they weren't actually good enough to do the role. Or they hire people and they realize that they're not a fit with the team, something that you've all mentioned. So no one wants to hire someone. They want pain solved. They have a pain somewhere in their organization, and their solution is someone to fix it. So I need you to shift your whole way of looking at things for no one wants to hire you. And that's why it's connected to, it's not about you, it's about the pain in the organization. So the challenge for you will be to figure out what is the pain in the organization. So you're going to have to do a little bit of research stroke psychology stroke high level empathy to, when you see a job hired, what's the pain? Because you're going to have to speak to that in your cover letter or your cover email, and you're going to have to address that in your CV and in your LinkedIn profile. So your executive summary in your CV and your executive summary in your LinkedIn, which should be different, by the way, they are the times where you show that you understand what pain you can solve. Okay, so you are healers in a woo-woo way. So what pain is the employer experiencing? Okay, what pain is okay, is that you, Paul? Yeah, okay, right, brilliant. So does anybody want to ask me any questions about this before we move on? But I'd like you to now start thinking about, what does this mean for your CV? Can anybody answer that? What implications has this got for your CV and for your LinkedIn profile and for your job search generally? Can you just put any suggestions, any ideas that are coming up into the chat? And if you don't know, say, I'm lost. You've lost me, Moira, help. Please let me know. Okay, Lucy starting to say only include relevant information. Relevant for who? Okay, so yeah, relevant for who? Cara, it's always abundantly clear what pain a company wants to solve before you get in front of them. Excellent. Okay, great. Roger, yeah, that the LinkedIn profile needs to be generic and the CV needs to be, yes, lovely, loving this. Brilliant. Okay. Yep, Lucy, the employer's pay. Okay. Yep, good. So one thing that I need to say is that you don't need to be a good salesperson in your CV. You need to be a good healer. You need to really be showing and not telling how you solve their pain. But you need to be a sales and marketing person when it comes to the whole strategy of job search. So if you think about how products come to the market, that's you. So you need to figure out, where do you need to be? Where are the people that you need to be seeing? Now, the other awesome thing, Paul doesn't know I'm going to say this, but Paul is awesome at writing speculative letters to people. I've never seen such amazing letters in terms of speculative letters to future employers on behalf of himself or other people. And these actually do work. So if you do enough research, I would always recommend that your strategy is a combination of being reactive and responding, of nurturing relationships with recruiters who are not pains in the arse and who you can develop a really good relationship with. So just think about all of that. So let's get on and look at the CV principles. These are the most important, I think. I'm not going to bombard you with science at the moment, but everything, as I've already said, needs to be written with the pain in mind. So it is not about a laundry list of all the things that you've done. It's, why is this on there? Okay, every single, if you ever work with me one-to-one, I'll be going, why have you put that there? What's that about? Tell me about this. And you absolutely have to have a CV that is 2 pages. Okay, I know that some recruiters don't care, but that means that you have just not distilled your experience down to its essence. So 2 pages. The discipline of getting it down to 2 pages will make your CV better. It's like sort of Danish minimalism. Okay, we're gonna craft this so that it is this beautiful object that you are really proud of, but it's not all sort of Louis XV with lots of gold twiddly bits and lots of irrelevant things that we don't really need. So you need to distill it right down to its essence and always be thinking, is this meeting the pain? Show, don't tell. Okay, now, normally there's a direct correlation between people who say that they hate selling themselves and the number of adjectives that get put in the CV about how awesome you are. Please don't put awesome adjectives in your CV. Do not tell me that you are an excellent communicator. Your CV, if it is beautifully crafted with no spelling mistakes, no grammar mistakes, and is laid out to perfection, and I go, wow, I have to interview this person, then you are an awesome communicator and you've shown me. But don't tell me, because you'll drive me nuts. And this is connected to the leave room for the reader. Let the reader draw their conclusions by the awesome stuff you've shown them and not told them. Okay, so if you say that you have great at attention to detail, then there should be absolutely no errors in your CV, none. So that means that you need to show your CV to at least half a dozen people, as well as using Grammarly and spell check and all of that awesome stuff, because it needs to be right. You cannot say you've got attention to detail if there is even one mistake. It matters. It really, really matters. And that's the same on LinkedIn. Make sure that your profiles don't have any mistakes in and are accurate. Okay, so show, don't tell. Any questions coming through, Paul? Have I got any questions that I haven't dealt with? Okay.
Oh, this is making sense.
Okay, so Lynn's saying this is making sense, a complete turnaround from my current CV and thoughts behind writing it. Yeah, thank you, Lynn. Yep. Nikolai, see, what if you don't know what their problem is? It's not always clear. We do go into detail with this on the job sprint, which is basically, this is how we start looking at you a bit more like a sales and marketing campaign, and we start looking at how we work out what their pain is. There's a whole set of exercises right at the beginning in the first Monday, Tuesday is all about working out the pain and also working out your offer. And between Paul and I, we will be coaching people in the LinkedIn group in terms of trying to find that out. So that's much more complicated, and it's personal to you. Some of the things around not knowing what people's pain is sometimes you might not be clear about what you want to do, and you might not be clear about where you should be going. And that's another thing that shows up in both people's LinkedIn profiles and in people's CVs. So Nicola, I've had a look at all of the people that were pre-registered as of last night, your profiles. I've looked at your LinkedIn profiles, and I can kind of guess what your CVs might be like as a result. Yeah, leave room for the reader. The reader is the one who's going to get meaning out of it. So don't hit them over the head with that. But you need to bear in mind the 8-second rule. Can anybody tell me what the 8-second rule is in the comments, please? Anybody want to tell me what the 8-second rule is? And actually, I might be a little bit optimistic. Could be 6, 4. I think I'm really, really judgmental. I think mine's a 4-second. If you haven't got their attention in 8 seconds, scan reading of the CV. Yes, yes, yes. So the average CV gets looked at for about 8 seconds. I've been involved in large-scale recruitment campaigns. This is before, you know, a lot of the stuff that's done. This is after, sorry, a lot of the stuff is sorted online. And that's basically what an algorithm is, okay? So even if your CV has been sorted by an algorithm, so we've all as human beings have an algorithm, and we are looking for certain things. And if we don't see those things, you're off. So that's what I mean about a 3-page, 4-page, 5-page CV. No one is going to be looking, you've got less control about what they see. So you need to think about how that's laid out and which bits of information you want people to see. I will also talk on the job sprint about how people read and how people scan, the difference between scanning and skimming, and how we pick up information and how we remember information. My first graduate job was in advertising. I worked for Saatchi & Saatchi. One of the things that we were trained on was how do people read, how do people pick up information, and how do we pull out and make sense of information. So all of that past stuff that doesn't seem to have anything to do with my current career really, really helps. So we will talk about that. And finally, your CV needs to have both clarity, right? It needs to be super clear what the story of you is. And it needs to have heart, right? If I can always tell when CVs have been written by other people, professional CV writers, for example, they are smooth but dull. So, and they're pretty generic. I can also tell when parents have written their children's CVs because they sound old and they sound full of corporate jargon, which 18, 19, 20, 21-year-olds do not use. In fact, I'd like you not to use them either. So I always say, write for a 9-year-old and a 90-year-old. And we'll talk much more about this on the actual job sprint. But bear that in mind, we want you. We want to see you. You may not be the person for the role, okay? But you need to be you in a good way, okay? Not in a pain in the arse way. Anybody got any questions so far? Oh yes, so Paul said recruiters don't have time to play detective. Absolutely. Okay, don't know what the 8-second is, first impressions count. Yeah, but do CVs that go through ATS even get looked at? Yes. No, let me clarify that. The ones that pass get looked at by a person. Okay, so when they get passed through the screening, the ones that get rejected will not get looked at by a human, not usually. And that's why you have to write a really good CV, and you have to think about what they're looking for. And again, on the job sprint, this is what we do. There's a whole set of exercises around what are those words. It's not a guessing game. It's an art and a science, but we can figure it out. and I can tell you how to figure it out. So yeah, if it doesn't pass that automatic screening, a human won't look at it. And so that's really, really important. But as I say, human beings are the most judgmental filters. They're way more judgmental than an algorithm. So you need to write it for both a human and a machine. Any other questions? Yes, yeah, Paul and I are passionate about all of this stuff. Can you tell? Right, okay, let's crack on. So in the Jobspring, this is an example of one of the handouts. You're going to get this handout. Basically, this is taking you through in detail what I've said the main parts of a CV is. We're going to look at, you know, what should be on which page. I am a super details-oriented person in terms of where you put stuff. We take you through talking about your career history. We talk about empathy. So that is about the pain. Do you know what the kind of pain is? Is your information written to answer the what's in it for me question that employers ask? Okay, now the other thing to point out that employers and recruiters are risk-averse people. They don't want to make a mistake. So you need to make them feel safe, that you are safe, that you are going to be a sure bet. And the way you show that is by being super reliable and super on your game as far as relating to recruiters, headhunters, hiring managers. I do not care if you turn around and say to me, but recruiters don't do the same. Life's not fair, and recruiters are buying and you're selling. And if you're a seller, you have to be better than a buyer. It's just the fact. So I hope you've by now spotted that I am super direct about all of this. I'm not going to beat around the bush, but I'm also going to be your most passionate advocate. Because what upsets me more than anything is I can see awesomeness hidden under a layer of spaghetti. And my passion is by taking that spaghetti off and getting this beautiful part of you and getting you interviews. I currently have a 23-year-old son who's looking for a job, and he has currently applied for 52 jobs. Very proud to say that most of the time he hasn't been rejected at CV level, although he's clearly being rejected because he doesn't have a first-class degree at first pass at some of them. So I am living with someone who is dealing with rejection on a daily basis. But I've also helped so many people through this process. So I would love to help you. So you're going to get this handout, by the way. Yeah, best to be direct. Oh, Mustafa, thank you. Best to be direct. Yeah, this is me. So thanks, you've got to get through the algorithm first. Yes, you do, Roger. Okay, so now we're going to work with recruiters and headhunters. Right, so this is my summary. Paul's going to jump into the chat. Please start asking about recruiters and headhunters in the chat. But basically, the people on the call now who know me know that I bang on about two elements of leadership, which everybody can show if they really work at it, and that's humility and self-discipline. So it is not about being, I am the most awesome, amazing person, because I don't want you to say that. You'll go on the reject pile. And the whole process of writing a CV and searching for a CV is an act of self-discipline. If you are currently out of work and you want to get into work, you need to be treating it like your day job. You need to be thinking, how much of my day is spent on sales and marketing? How much of my day is spent on writing? How much of my day is spent having great conversations with people? How much is spent looking after myself, because it's a marathon? So if you were running a marathon, what would you need to do? You'd need to eat right. You'd need to sleep right. You'd need to exercise right. You need to be with people that care about you. So all of these things are things that you need to do, self-discipline. One of the most important things with recruiters is you need to make it easy. They have their own algorithm. They've got their own checklist of things, right? So you do not want them to be trying to translate and read between the lines. You have to make it super obvious for them that this is how you meet the criteria. And we're going to go back again, show, don't tell. Not only in the CV, but in your process with the recruiter. Recruiters, like coaches, are making meaning all the time. So if you are late or you cancel, you are not reliable. It doesn't matter if you say that you are professional in your CV, because you're not reliable. If you say that you're a great project manager, then the best project you should be managing is you, and you should always be meeting deadlines, and you should be thinking ahead like good project managers do. So those are the kind of best tips that I can say. Now, the other thing is, please understand that attitude trumps talent every single time. It doesn't matter if you are the best person, okay, in your opinion, for the job, and you have the most qualifications. It doesn't matter. We don't know that, okay, but we can see attitude. We can see it right there. And therefore, attitude is so important. So that's why I showed you about the emotional stuff at the beginning, because if you don't get to that stuff, if you don't show that, and then finally, seeking a win-win partnership. Maybe great don't do cookie cutter. Okay. What? Say that again. Maybe great. Can you explain that, Roger? Can you put some more about that in the chat? That would be great. But basically, the key to working with recruiters and hunters is headhunters, Freudian slip, seek a win-win partnership. So you do not have to deal with every recruiter on the block. Be fussy. They are also under pressure and stress right now. You put your empathy hat on and realize that their whole industry has been shaken up, continually shaken up. But there's been a move to in-house recruiting. There's been a move to using the algorithm. LinkedIn now, people can make it much easier to hire people through their networks. So recruiters are under pressure and under stress. So they need you, but only if they think that you are awesome. And you will not be awesome just by telling them. Okay. Yes, yes, Mustafa, absolutely. One problem is that some of the recruiters have little experience and it's difficult to talk to them and explain what we do. No, that's fine. That's why your CV needs to be better and clearer. That's absolutely right. And even hiring managers or HR may not know what you do. Think about the example of selling a house. Recruiters are estate agents, so they can show the obvious things. Dual aspect living room, ensuite bathroom. But they will not know how the plumbing works, or they will not know that it gets lots of sun in the garden in the evening. So that's up to you. You've got to think that when you're selling your house, you don't only put it in the hands of the estate agent, you take care of certain things. You tidy the house up, you weed the garden, you do whatever. You've got to also make sure that it is easy. And that's part of your interview process with the recruiters. How much do they understand about the job? And use recruiters that do. Just a thought. Right, let's move on, because I'm aware we've got 10 minutes and we need to deal with LinkedIn. So LinkedIn, I've already mentioned some of this, but your profile is not your CV. And Roger, you was super on the ball with that. It's much more generic, but it needs to be much more personal. So you need to write it in the first person. I help you. Okay, so real spoken language, it's called social media for a reason. There's a clue in the title, it's social. If you write in the third person, it just seems truly bizarre because no one else could possibly have written it except you. So it'd be like me now going, well, Moira thinks this, Moira thinks it's really important that you'll see that. She thinks that you should understand how people see your profile. Is that bizarre or what? So please do not write in the third person. Do not refer to yourself as if someone else has written your LinkedIn profile. I need you now in a minute to look at your profile, but let's think about the most important valuable real estate. Your most valuable real estate is what? If you put in the chat, please, where's the most valuable real estate for your profile on LinkedIn? Great. Your headline, Mustafa, you win the prize. Top of the page, yes. Okay, so most important thing is that, and that is for human eyes and for the algorithm. Therefore, it needs to count. Every single character needs to count. So you must not put immediately available, or available for work, or looking for work, or any version thereof, because you are just being overlooked by the algorithm. Okay, there is a function in the back end of your LinkedIn profile that you can turn on to say that you are available for recruitment. And if recruiters haven't paid for premium and are not paid to get that toggle, then you don't really want to work with them anyway. Okay, if they're cheapskates, just like if you're cheapskate, you ain't going to get there. So if there's a toggle in the back end, you need to turn that on. Does everybody know where that is? So just turn that on, go into the settings and look at that. Consider the algorithm at all points. So now we're going to look at some of your profiles. Some of you, this might be some of yours, I might have just chosen random people. Okay, Roger, actually I've got you on here. Okay, sorry, I didn't know you were going to be on this, by the way, but I just took people who had commented on some of my LinkedIn posts about this webinar. So what I'd like you to do now is I want you to look at these 4 profiles. This is what you see on a mobile. And I want to tell you, you're not all in the same business, right? Exactly. But I want you to tell me who you'd hire, or who looks like someone that you'd take some more interest in, and why. So please be constructive. Please say who you would choose and why. Please be kind and constructive. No pressure then. Roger. Yeah, actually, this is the other thing, that on the job sprint, we will be looking at everybody's profiles and getting the wisdom of the crowd, because there's nothing like, you know, I can say everything with the best will in the world, but actually, it's really good to get other people's point of view. And you can go and do this now. You can go and get other people to help you. You don't have to come on the sprint for this. So, right. Roger, he spells out what he does. His headline is in plain English. Whose? Roger's? Okay, so I'm going to disagree, Roger. Let's talk to you directly. I have no idea what you do from that headline. So, helping organizations deliver enhanced marketing activity for better audience interaction, you will not get in the algorithm. I have no idea what you do. You can put that somewhere perhaps in your executive summary, but to me it's word salad. A 9-year-old, a 90-year-old, are they going to understand that? Okay, so I'm being a little bit harsh. I can guess at what you do, but if I have to guess, you failed. So you have to think what searchers are looking for, right? Who would you definitely not hire? Who would you definitely not hire right now? Please put it in the, I hate word salad, that will change it. Good. Okay, Roger, what you're looking for is something like the person on the left. Okay, Anthony's, right? He has every search term that he wants to be found for in his headline. It's not sexy. A 9-year-old and a 90-year-old wouldn't understand what they mean, okay? But that's what the algorithm's looking for. That's what recruiters are looking for. That's what people are looking for, okay? So when you are job searching, don't be smart. Don't put Chief Creativity Officer, just write what people are searching for. Poor old Brian will not be found by anyone because he's wasted all of his real estate, okay? And then finally, Morva's, also hers, you know, clear what she does. So let's now look at why your headline matters even more. When you're communicating with people, you're going to see that you only get the first 23 characters, or 24 characters will show when you are making comments on LinkedIn. And so again, I'd like you to look at the left-hand side. Kamran Hussain has put founder and managing, and I presume that means managing director. No one is searching for founders and managing directors via the algorithm on LinkedIn. And he's not, that's not his job. He's a contractor. So I had to go and look at his profile to tell that, but he's just wasting his real estate there. Same with Dave Wood, director at How to Agile Limited. Unless you are the CEO of Apple, do not do this. No one is searching for the director at How to Agile. Okay, that How to Agile will come up in your current roles, but please don't put that. Roger, can you see what happens with yours? Helping organizations deliver. Way too vague. And Nicola, you're there as well. Again, I have no idea. No idea. And same with Brian. And no one's going to look. Your comments and your LinkedIn activity is really important for building your network and getting people to come across to you. So please make those first 23 or 24 characters count. Put the most important things at the front. Do not put that you're looking for work. Those are the most important things. So what I'd like to imagine you doing now, as soon as we finish this call, is that you go and you change your LinkedIn profiles accordingly. And the other thing that's really important, I'm going to give you this for nothing, is that the algorithm on LinkedIn is also prioritizes the current role you're in. Okay, the current role you're in. So for those of you that are contractors that have limited companies, you can obviously have that as your current role. And again, underneath that, you need to be thinking about what is the pain you solve, and you put those things. If you're out of work and you don't have a limited company, you can put the skills that you offer in your current experience, and you have that running to current, because the algorithm is not a person, and the algorithm is picking up where's your current position. So the most important elements that the algorithm gives priority to is your headline and your current role. If there is no current role, you'll fall off the algorithm. So did anybody know that? Did anybody know that? No. Okay, good. All right, so you've got some value, Roger. Okay, so this is really, really super important. So you can see, like, when I've been looking over the last few days, I've just been putting my head in my hands at all these people who are searching for work, thinking you are missing the most obvious steps. So if you can just take those steps, that's a big step forward. We're coming up to the hour. So if anybody can stay for 5 minutes and ask questions, please do in the chat. But otherwise, I want to thank you for your attention. I want to thank you for being so lovely and interactive, and to consider whether you need some extra help. Please sign up for the job search sprint. Paul, you were going to put it in the chat for me. Thank you. Okay, Nicola, what if you haven't got a current role? You can put a title, a current role. You put a title of what you do that kind of echoes what you're looking for in your headline. You put from the date that you were unemployed, including to current, so you take the end date off, and then you put your key things that you offer: a proven ability to do X, experience at doing Y. Those are the kind of things that you do. I did have a list of verbs somewhere, but basically we cover this also on the job sprint. But this is what is really important, that you put lists of skills. So imagine on a CV where you may have a top piece that's sort of a summary of skills in your CV. That's the same kind of thing that you put on your profile. So do let me know if that's been helpful. Do let me know if what the biggest takeaway is, because it'll help me work out how to run these in the future. But otherwise, Paul, can I just see if sorry. So just going to leave you with the link to the job search sprint, but any questions or comments? Can't quite see the chat at the moment. I'm going to actually end the slide share, then I can see your lovely chat. Okay, brilliant. All right. Can you connect with Paul on LinkedIn? Yes, you can. Paul Jenkins. Paul Jenkins, if you put your details into your LinkedIn profile into the chat. Otherwise, Paul will check you out as well, but do connect with him, absolutely. Yeah, so food for thought. Abby, great. I know you're on the program already. Really looking forward to working with you. Hopefully you'll realize what you're going to get. Thanks, Lynn. Profile. Yep. please, I'm really looking forward to working with all of you. I will go back through the chat. If you're not already connected to me on LinkedIn, please reach out. Do not send me a generic connection request. Put why you've connected with me. I don't connect with people unless I know why. So either I've met you or you're going to give me a really good reason to connect, but I don't connect with strangers. So you need to not be a stranger. And that is a tip for everybody. Otherwise, I'm aware that we've run out of time. But if you want to see what I'm going to do, I have all your emails. I am going to send you the slides and the CV assessment handout. And if you want to join the Get Off the Hamster Wheel group, the video replay will be in there. If you know anybody who could benefit from the sprint on Monday, then tell them all about it. But otherwise, thank you, everybody. You've been awesome.